Welcome one and all to week 2 of the NFL season. Opening week is officially in the history books, and now this is where things truly get serious. Opening week can often be filled with chaos and crazy flukes, so this is the time where we find out who's consistent and which teams are who we thought they were. Today, I will be breaking down and predicting every single game happening in week 2. And if this is something you enjoy, as well as other NFL commentaries, make sure to subscribe for more. In week 1, I somehow managed to go 13-3, so realistically, it's all downhill from here. So starting off week 2 on Thursday night is going to be the Miami Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills. Week 1 followed a very similar script for both of these sides, where they started off slow, but ended their game strong. Buffalo had to overcome early mistakes, while the Dolphins took a while to warm up their offense. Needless to say, both sides did not have an ideal start to their year. But I think there's a few key differences that can help us decide who truly should be the favorite in this one. Aside from Miami being at home, it's worth noting that they had some pretty unideal circumstances during that Jags game, where the whole Tyreek situation unfolded. Maybe everyone was a little bit shook. It took them a while to get it going. But with the offense that they have, obviously, it's not going to be like that always. It's only a matter of time till they have one of their explosive games, and this could be an ideal scenario against a Buffalo secondary that leaves much to be desired. And we saw that in the Arizona game. Tyreek Hill always has those scorching starts. He's overdue for it, and I think the Dolphins are going to win in a relatively high-scoring game. And considering that Josh Allen seems to be a little bit hurt with that left hand coming off a short week, it may be just a little bit too much for the Bills to overcome. Looking into the 1 p.m. Sunday slates, first up we'll talk about the New Orleans Saints versus the Dallas Cowboys. The Saints are coming off a pretty big victory over the Carolina Panthers, where the offense just had their way in the first half, and the game was over literally by quarter number 1. Meanwhile, the Cowboys beat a pretty respectable Browns team by just destroying them when it comes to that defensive side of things. Deshaun Watson was running for his life, and the game was never within reach. What happens when these two squads go up against each other coming off a high? Well, reasonably, you have to take the Cowboys, I feel like, just because they're so much more proven compared to the Saints team. Beating the Panthers the way they did is great, yes, but they're still the Panthers at the end of the day. Dallas beat a significantly better opponent while still blowing them out. I feel like this is a mean mismatch on paper. Dallas at home is going to make Derek Carr's life a nightmare. You saw what happened to Deshaun Watson last weekend. He was running for his life out there. Derek Carr can't do that. He's a pocket quarterback. He's not going to have time to throw, and he's going to be playing a secondary that is not made of Swiss cheese. Those guys are ball hawks over there, and Carr is bound to make some big mistakes. The Cowboys are usually a good regular season team, so this one feels pretty clear. What's not as clear, though, is the next game. The Detroit Lions taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at home. These two played a pretty damn close matchup in the playoffs last year, and they virtually still have the same rosters. An upset could be brewing in this one, I'm not going to lie to you. I think the Bucs match up pretty well against this Lions team, and let's not forget that Detroit did not look fantastic against the Rams during Sunday night. Yes, they got the win when it mattered in overtime, but they went pretty cold in the second half of that matchup. Meanwhile, Baker looked pretty confident out there. Yes, it was a weak Commanders team, but that's a great sign to see him playing with some consistency, as it's something that he hasn't done much of in his career. Knowing that both secondaries are kind of suspect, this could be a pretty high-scoring game where both quarterbacks are slinging the rock with ease. It honestly depends on who you trust more in that scenario. For me personally, I'd lean towards the Lions to get this win, just because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers cornerback situation is not as clear as it once was now that they don't have Carlton Davis. Amon-Ra St. Brown had a pretty quiet week against the Rams. He is overdue to go absolutely off. He did against Tampa last year, if I remember correctly, and I think he'll do it again here as the Lions win in a relatively close matchup. But I will say, for the sports bettors out there, you could maybe make some pretty easy money with a fairly generous line for Detroit at -7. I think the Bucs can keep it a lot closer than that, so something to look into. Next up, the Indianapolis Colts take on the Green Bay Packers. Now, if Jordan Love was healthy, this could be a pretty interesting game, but with him going down and Malik Willis being confirmed to be the starter heading into this week, I think you just gotta go all in on the Colts. The Pack are a very talented team, and that alone may keep this somewhat close. But you can't rely on Malik to go out and get this win. You just can't. He's done nothing at the NFL level, and we saw the Colts compete against a really good Texans team. The Eagles were able to run the ball so easily with Saquon Barkley against Green Bay, and that's what the Colts offense is all about. With Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson leading the way, they will slowly but surely run that Packers team over and get this W. Next up, the New York Jets versus the Tennessee Titans. And the Jets unfortunately didn't play as well as you'd like to see them in Aaron Rodgers' debut, but they did play a tough 49ers team, so I kind of give them the benefit of the doubt. They get a much easier matchup against the Titans this weekend, and I suspect they win with relative ease. The Titans defense did a great job of keeping the Bears offense in check, but they still managed to lose that game without giving up a single offensive touchdown, and now they're going from a rookie quarterback to one of the league's all-time greats, and I think that will be a big shock factor that they're just not ready for. Will Levis losing that game against Chicago probably hurt him a lot, and this Jets defense is a lot more dangerous. Their secondary is definitely a step up compared to what Chicago's rocking with, and I expect Will Levis to make even more mistakes in this one, leading to a pretty easy Jets dub. Speaking of easy dubs, the San Francisco 49ers play the Minnesota Vikings in Minnesota, and despite the Vikings having a great performance against the Giants, this is where they surely crash back down to earth. The Vikings are a decent team, no doubt about it, but they haven't been tested yet. They played the Giants, like the worst offense in the league outside of Carolina. Now they're playing San Fran, who just ran over a good Jets defense. Brian Flores bringing the heat against Daniel Jones may work, but that sure as hell is not going to fly against Brock Purdy. He's cool, calm, and collected under pressure. He's going to make those throws. And if you remember last weekend, the Giants receivers on average were getting like 4 yards of separation. If the Niners receivers even come close to that, this game's going to be over by halftime. And come on now, we can't trust Sam Darnold to be beating the 49ers. He played the Giants last week with no pressure in his face, no coverage downfield. It is a night and day difference playing a Super Bowl contender like that, and I'm sure this NFL journeyman will learn that the hard way. Next up, Seattle versus New England. An interesting one, seeing as the Seahawks slowly but surely got a tough win over a Broncos team, while the Pats managed to upset the Bengals. I, for one, don't think this Seahawks team is all that special. Their offensive line is susceptible to giving up a lot of pressure, and Gerard Mayo and the Pats are certainly going to bring the heat. We could be in for a low-scoring affair here, where the Pats have a shot at this, but I think you gotta pick Seattle here. The Pats winning twice in a row with their level of talent seems highly unlikely. The Seahawks' offensive line is not ideal, and I could see the Pats bringing a ton of pressure. Gerard Mayo seems like that type of guy. But unlike Joe Burrow, Geno Smith's actually a bit more mobile. He can escape the pocket, and that's a pretty big advantage to have. He can extend those plays and probably find DK down the field from some blown coverage here and there, and that should be all they need. The Pats are not going to put up a lot of points. Jacoby Brissett and the offense showed that in their matchup against the Bengals. The dude had like 120 yards passing, for crying out loud. That's not going to cut it against the Seahawks. This is not the week 1 slow start Bengals, and they'll suffer the consequences. Moving on, the Giants are playing the Commanders in an NFC East divisional battle. In any other season, I would probably favor the Giants, as they usually have Washington's number. But not after what I saw in week 1 against the Vikings. That was all I needed to see to know that Daniel Jones truly is only getting worse with time, and that he's just not an NFL starting quarterback. He's thrown 2 touchdown passes in his last 8 games, and they both came against the Cardinals in week 2 of last year. He's not it. He's a man that has lost all of his confidence. He's afraid to throw the ball downfield, and you're just not going to win if you can't find the end zone. It's not likely. The Commanders are going to make mistakes. Jaden Daniels is a rookie quarterback. I'm sure that Brian Burns and Dexter Lawrence will force him to make some dumb errors. But he's going to have like a million chances to figure it out. And slowly but surely, with the talent he has, he most definitely will. What does it matter if you make mistakes if the Giants offense just can't capitalize? The Commanders are probably going to win an ugly game simply because the Giants are that terrible. Jaden Daniels with his legs will extend plays, and he's overdue to find some good connections with Terry McLaurin. That Giants secondary is garbage, and I'm sure him and Jaden Daniels will have some big plays, and that'll be all it takes to win. Speaking of terrible football being played, the Panthers are going to take the field against the Chargers, and of course, everybody and their mother will be picking the Chargers to win this game with relative ease. Now, maybe the Panthers won't get blown out as badly as they did against the Saints, just because the Chargers offense doesn't really operate the same way. I feel like they're more systematic, and they'll slowly but surely just destroy the Panthers by running it on the ground, taking out the clock, and just not making any mistakes because they are a significantly better football team. In the end, the Chargers D will probably make Bryce Young look like garbage, and they'll just win an easy game like 24-0 or something like that. This Panthers team is god-awful, and just like the Giants, you can't win a game if you don't find the end zone. Simple as that. But how about the Jaguars versus the Browns? This one's pretty tough. This is my AFC game of the week. It's 50-50, no doubt about it. I think both teams have a reasonable shot of winning this game, and they match up well with each other. My expectation is a relatively low-scoring game in this one. The Browns, even though they played like crap against Dallas, are known for their defense. That's their identity. They should bounce back against a Jags team that aren't known for putting a lot of points up on the board. But on the other side of it, the Jags defense impressed against the Dolphins. That's not an easy team to be holding to 20 points, but they went out there and did it. And now they're playing Deshaun Watson, who is significantly worse. In all likelihood, it comes down to who turns the ball over more. Whoever makes the most of those opportunities is going to be the one to win. And if I'm putting money on it, I think I'd go with Cleveland in that scenario. These are the games where it feels like the Jaguars always manage to lose. It's those super winnable ones where you have confidence in them where they tend to let you down. He'll have opportunities to win this game. I'm sure Deshaun Watson will make mistakes. But I didn't exactly love how he looked against Miami last week. Outside of a couple of throws, just wasn't moving the ball that well, and this Browns defense is overdue for a great performance. We saw what they did to Trevor last year. The dude threw like 3 interceptions. The Jags had a bit of a ball security issue against Miami last week when it came to the fumbles. I get the feeling they're just going to turn the ball over more, and that's going to be the difference. While I don't trust Deshaun Watson one bit, even he is eventually going to convert if you give him opportunities in the red zone, and that'll be that. It'll be an ugly game, but I have slight confidence in Cleveland to get the W. Next up, Vegas versus Baltimore. Not much of a contest here at all. Really disappointed with how the Raiders looked. It seemed like they maybe had some momentum going against the Chargers, but then that fumble really just ruined everything, and the game was over. And the Ravens damn near beat the Chiefs last week. That's about all I need to see. New week, new team, new game plan, but the Raiders offense has a lot of work cut out for them. And this Ravens defense is not who you want to run into in that type of scenario. In my opinion, the Raiders need a weaker opponent to beat up against first to build up their confidence before they're ready for an upset like this. And also, just knowing the Ravens and how they like to run the ball, it's going to be a nightmare matchup. You saw what the Chargers and J.K. Dobbins did to the Raiders last week. You can't tell me that Derrick Henry and Lamar won't do the same. Should be a pretty easy win for Baltimore. But how about the Rams versus the Cardinals? This one's pretty interesting. The Cards played great against Buffalo. They damn near pulled off that upset on the road. And just knowing that Marvin Harrison Jr. didn't do much of anything, he could be overdue for a breakout performance against a Rams defense that leaves a lot to be desired. Not a big fan of either defense, and the expectation is it could be a pretty high-scoring affair. But I actually favor the Rams to win this one on the road. Wouldn't be surprised if the Cardinals won, because they feel like that kind of team this year, where they're going to be a real problem. Maybe they won't win a lot of games, but they'll be super competitive. But I just trust the Rams more from an execution standpoint. If neither defense ends up showing up, and you're depending on Matt Stafford or Kyler Murray, I think most people would take Stafford in the clutch. That's just how it goes. They may be down Puka Nacua, but they moved the ball fine without him in the second half of that game against Detroit. Cooper Kupp is still a thing. He's going to get a lot of targets, and I doubt anyone on the Cardinals even stands a chance of stopping him. I like DeMarcus Robinson a lot. I think he'll step up in the absence of Puka, and the Rams' run game will likely look a lot better. Kyron Williams has those matches, and this could be one of them for sure. Although with the absence of Aaron Donald, maybe Kyler Murray takes a step up and he can actually overcome the Rams. But looking at it historically, things don't look good for him in the Cardinals. Now at the 425 slots, first is the Denver Broncos and the Pittsburgh Steelers. This has ugly Steelers victory written all over it. Both defenses are very respectable, and it should be a rather low-scoring game, just knowing the height of both offenses. But I favor the Steelers to win this game just because Bo Nix is such an uncertain rookie quarterback. He was very all over the place in that Seattle game, and now he's playing a significantly more ferocious defense than the Steelers. A rookie like him going up against TJ Watt every snap just doesn't bode well, I feel like. The linebacking core is dangerous. Maybe they won't get the run game going. He'll get frustrated early on, and he'll throw some interceptions. And from there, I think the Steelers just take it by executing better with their game plan. They probably don't put up a lot of points either, but if they make less mistakes, they should be able to move the ball downfield and at least win by death by field goal at the very least. I would definitely avoid watching that game. It's going to be painful. What's maybe a bit more exciting, though, is the Bengals taking on the Chiefs, an AFC rivalry of the ages. The Bengals are looking to come back big after a pretty rough week 1 against New England, and we know that Joe Burrow usually likes to own Kansas City, so this might be a situation where the Bengals show some serious life. They always show up to play the Chiefs. But generally, I feel like you still have to favor Kansas City, and I have them winning this game. Wouldn't be shocked if the Bengals won, but I like KC more just because I feel like they're only scratching the surface of what they can be, especially on offense. We saw a nice preview with Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy, but as they open up that playbook more, they're only going to go crazier with some of those explosive plays, and I don't know if the Bengals are ready for it. I feel like they're going to be subject to some crazy Pat Mahomes bombs to Xavier Worthy. Oh, and let's not forget about the Bengals' offensive line situation. That Chiefs defense is still very solid, and I did not like how that Bengals O-line held up against the Pats. That Pats defense is not special like it used to be, and they even lost Matthew Judon, but they still couldn't keep Joe Burrow on his feet. And now he's going up against Chris Jones and that Steve Spagnuolo-led Chiefs defense. That has disaster written all over it to me, and I feel the Chiefs will just have more opportunities with Mahomes having a bit more time to throw the football, and that'll be that as they get yet another win over their AFC rival. Looking into Sunday night, you've got the battle of the new generation. CJ Stroud and the Texans versus Caleb Williams and the Browns, potentially a rival for years to come playing out here. But with how early we are into the Caleb Williams experiment, you've got to favor the Texans at home to take care of business and win this game. Caleb and the Bears left a lot to be desired in the first week. It just wasn't what you want. Under 100 yards passing is not ideal. Lots of rookie mistakes being made through and through, but they should be playing better in this upcoming game. There's nowhere to go but up. But how much further can they go up in only 1 week of progress? That is the question. Maybe this game brings out the best in Caleb, and it'll be an excellent breakout game for him. But more likely than not, they're going to fall behind this Texans offense, which is just so much more established. Stroud and this team is just better overall. The Bears' defense and special teams is nice, but they can only do so much against CJ Stroud, and that ultimately will be the difference to me. They won't be able to keep pace with this Houston offense. Slowly but surely, they will fall behind, and with how early we are into Caleb's career, I don't think he has it in him to pull off a comeback. I'm hoping for a good game. I'm hoping for a breakout match, but I'm not going to hold my breath just yet. It may take another week or two before we see Caleb truly cashing in on the potential of this offense. And lastly, on Monday night, the Battle of the Birds, the Falcons versus the Eagles. The Falcons should have nowhere to go but up after that matchup with the Steelers. Hopefully Kirk has shaken off some of that rust and they can put up more than 10 points in a game. I think against this Philly secondary, which still leaves a lot to be desired, they should be able to do that. But will it be enough to get a win? I'm not so sure about that. The Eagles had a great bend-but-break mentality on defense, often keeping the Packers out of the end zone in clutch scenarios when good opportunities were presenting themselves, and they may do the same thing to Atlanta. and I'm a little worried Atlanta won't be able to return the favor. They were often bend but don't break against the Steelers, but obviously they can't execute to the level the Eagles can, knowing the quarterback play and how much talent they have. And unfortunately, the Steelers have some similar aspects to the Eagles. A mobile quarterback, a run game that they like to commit to with Saquon Barkley. Pittsburgh were able to get like 130 yards on the ground against Atlanta. Philly can surely do the same, if not more. Maybe they just run off the clock with that run it down your throat mentality, and they don't give Atlanta enough chances to get back into this game, and their offense just stays cold again, like in that Pittsburgh game. It could go a very similar way, but the score just being a bit higher. I like the Eagles in this one, as they're just the better team. But that pretty much wraps up my thought process on week 2. Be sure to let me know what your game picks are looking like and how they're different from mine, and what games you personally are looking forward to watching the most down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe to this channel for more NFL content every single week.